You're live. Okay. I think we're good. Okay, cool. On with the show. Alright. Hello, everybody. Sorry about the technical hiccup. Hopefully, you can hear me more clearly now. We had to switch microphones. But, yeah, I'll repeat what I said at the beginning because nobody heard it. So, this is the second of our virtual classes online. So, thanks for tuning in. Really glad to have you with us. Tonight we're going to be talking about music theory basics. So tonight there's going to be 3 broad categories. So number 1 is notation basics, how music's written, the symbols you're likely to see. The second big section is rhythm, everything you need to know about rhythm, how to read it, what it all means. And the third one is pitch. So those are the 3 big subjects, and I anticipate there'll be lots of questions along the way. So please do write your questions in the comment bar. That would be great. Geordie's here with me, and he's gonna mention tell me what the questions are, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. So as we go, I encourage you to write all your questions and comments in the comment bar. Let's get going. Alright, section 1 is notation basics, i.e. what all the funny symbols on my sheet music are called. Okay, so we've all seen this. This is the stave or the staff. I'm just going to call it the stave from here on. So the stave or the staff has 5 lines. In Western notation, we write music on the stave. Some pieces of music have many, many staves. With our barbershop music, we use 2 usually. We'll get more to that a little bit later on. Okay, bars and bar lines. In standard notation, which is what we use, we divide the stave into equal bars or measures separated with bar lines. So that's 1 bar, that's another, that's a 3rd one, that's a 4th one. There's often little numbers along, so you know where you're up to. So the bars are equal in length unless we have a special meter change, which we'll talk a little bit about later on. But for the most part, in a piece of music, all of the bars are equal length chunks. And bars are a convenience thing as much as anything else, because if there were no bar lines, it'd be very hard to decide where to start from, unless we're starting from the beginning. But if our music is chopped up into little sections like this, then I can just say we're going to go from bar 20, and everybody can find where that is pretty quickly. Clefs. Okay. So clefs appear at the beginning of a piece of music, and they broadly indicate the pitches that will follow. The design of each clef points to a specific note. For example, the treble clef encircles the note G. The treble clef, also known as the G clef, shows you where the note G is. So if you're looking at your treble clef here, I might zoom in a little bit on it. It's circling around this line, the 2nd line of the stave, and this treble clef is telling you that that note that it's circling around is G. So that's why the treble clef is sometimes also called the G clef. We use the treble clef for instruments like flute, or women's voices, or the piano right hand, as well as lots of other instruments, the guitar as well. The bass clef, so baritones and basses, we read the bass clef. The bass clef is also known as the F clef. because it shows you where the note F is. So if I zoom in on the bass clef here, the two dots are either side of this line here. It's telling you that this line is F in this piece of music. So that's the bass clef, also known as the F clef. So we use the bass clef for instruments like bass guitar, low male voices, and the piano left hand. Now I've included this one here because it's relevant to us as barbershop singers. So this is the sub-octave treble clef. The sub-octave treble clef, like the normal treble clef, shows us where the note G is. In this case, however, notes written in this clef are 1 octave lower than the treble clef. Hence the little 8 here below the clef. In barbershop music, we write the lead and tenor parts on this clef. So we'll refer back to this one a little bit later on, the sub-octave treble clef. Moving on. Time signatures. And by the way, guys, if you have questions along the way, feel free to write them in the comments bar, and Geordie will tell me if there's any questions. Time signatures. Here are 3 commonly used time signatures. The time signature is shown at the start of a piece of music and indicates the grouping of rhythms in each bar. The top number indicates how many of each count will be in each bar. The bottom number indicates what kind of count. Let's zoom in on the 4/4 first. There we go. Okay, so in 4/4, the top number, 4, indicates that there are 4 counts in this bar. The bottom number, also a 4, indicates that each count is a crotchet. A crotchet is one of the kinds of rhythms that we're going to look at soon. Let's have a look at 3/4. The top number, 3, indicates 3 counts in each bar. The bottom number, 4, indicates that each count is a crotchet. So 3/4 and 4/4 are similar in that they both count crotchets. So in 4/4 you can have a group of 4 crotchets before you need a new bar. In 3/4 time you need a group of 3 crotchets before you can have a new bar. Let's move across. 6/8, this is a really nice time signature. So the top number 6 indicates 6 counts in each bar. The bottom number 8 indicates that each count is a quaver. So a quaver is half the length of a crotchet. We'll get more to that in a bit. And in 6/8, you have 6 quavers, but they're usually grouped in 2 groups of 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. An example of something in 6/8 would be Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. So it's got like 2 triplets, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in every bar. We're going to look at some examples of different time signatures in our repertoire soon. And again, guys, if you've got questions, fire them away and Geordie will let me know. Alright, so that was the notation basics section. Now we're going to move on to this big section, which is rhythm. Rhythm, i.e. how short and long those sounds go for and how they are grouped. It's a really big section. Okay, so notes. Different symbols are used for the different notes. The different shapes represent different rhythms or durations. See the different note symbols and their value on the chart opposite. So in this column we've got the name of the symbol. Then we've got the picture of the symbol, the note itself. Here we have the corresponding rest, which we'll talk about in a second. And in this column we've got the value. So we can see that a semibreve, its value is 4, and a minim is half that length, its value is 2. And then a crotchet is half of that, and then a quaver is half of that. Rests. Rests are like antinotes. These symbols represent silence. For every note symbol, there is a rest symbol of equal value. They are referred to by their note counterpart, i.e. crotchet rest or quaver rest. So we've got a crotchet note here, and then beside it we've got the crotchet rest. So both the crotchet and the crotchet rest are equal to 1 count. And so if you have a quaver, which is worth half a count, there's a quaver rest, which gets half a count as well. Also, this is interesting too. So a dot added to the right of a note or a rest increases its duration by 50%, or half of its current value. For example, a crotchet, the value of which is 1, with a dot added becomes a dotted crotchet with value 1.5. So there's your crotchet, which is equal to 1. There's a dotted crotchet, which is equal to 1.5. And if we apply the dot to a minim, so a normal minim is equal to 2. You apply the dot, it adds 50%. So 2 count note becomes 3 counts. That's a dotted minim. There are some rarer note types which we don't see much anymore. So there is a note called a breve, which is 8 counts long, or twice as long as a semibreve. That's sort of fallen out of common use. And at the other end of the spectrum, you get semiquavers, which are worth 1/4 of a beat, and then demi-semiquavers and hemi-demi-semiquavers. It goes on and on and on. We'll see some of those a little bit later on. Alright, here we've got the rhythm tree. So this is, many music textbooks will have a picture kind of like this. I found this one looked pretty good to me. So at the top we've got the semibreve here, also known as the whole note. So if you use the US names, they call semibreve a whole note. And then you go down, you can split the semibreve into 2 minims or half notes. Then you can split each minim into 2 crotchets. And keep going down, you split each crotchet into 2 quavers, and then split each quaver into 2 semiquavers. And then, it mentions down here, the pattern continues with the 32nd note, a demi-semiquaver, which has triple tail, and the 64th note, the hemi-demi-semiquaver, which has 4 tails. Hopefully we don't encounter many of those in our music. I have seen them in certain kinds of music, and it's a bit tricky to read, so we rarely get faster than a semiquaver in our kind of music. Alright, here's a rhythm example, which I took from one of our repertoire pieces, I Still Call Australia Home. So, I Still Call Australia Home is in 3/4 time, meaning there are 3 crotchet counts to a bar. In the first bar, that's this bit here, there is a crotchet, that's the first note, a dotted crotchet, 1.5 counts, and a quaver, which is half a count. So you've got 1 plus 1.5 plus 0.5, so the total's 3 counts. So in 3/4 time we say that's 3 crotchets to a bar. Now you can combine those crotchets to make minims, like over here. You can break them apart, so you've got quavers, but no matter what combination of rhythms you use, it's still got to add up to 3 crotchets. So you could have 6 quavers, or you could have 1 dotted minim, or you could have 1 minim and 4 semiquavers, but you've got to add up to 3 crotchets per bar in 3/4 time. In 3/4 time, the first count in each bar is slightly emphasized. Think waltz time. So if we sing it, and you can all sing along at home. Ba ba ba, I've been. We're going to emphasize the first note in each bar. So we go like this. 1, 2, 3. I've been to cities that never close down. Do it one more time, and notice that we're emphasizing these ones. 1, 2, 3. I've been to cities that never close down. So in 3/4, that's the kind of natural pattern of strong beats or accents. Alright, here's another example from our repertoire. This is Spoonful of Sugar, it's just the tenor line at the moment. And we've analysed some of the rhythmic elements that you can see in this segment. So the first thing here is cut common time. That's the time signature. I'll just zoom in a little bit on that so you can see that better. So it's a bit fuzzy there, but it's a C with a stroke through it. That is the symbol for cut common time. So what's cut common time? Cut common time can also be written as 2/2 time. So instead of, say, 4/4, you can write cut common as 2/2. So what does that mean? It means in each bar there are 2 counts. That's what the top number would mean. The bottom number, which is also a 2, means that each of those counts is a minim. So cut common time can look like 4/4 time. Because if you've got 2 minims, then, well, you could also have 4 crotchets as well. It could look the same. The difference, though, is in how it's sung and how it's performed. Because in 2/2 time, you want to strongly emphasize that there's 2 beats in a bar. And I'll show you how that works in a sec. I'll sing a bit of it to you. Yes. Also to note at the start of the song is this is a pickup bar, also known as an anacrusis. So a pickup bar at the start of a piece of music, or sometimes at the start of a new section of music, it's an incomplete bar. So it does not have 2 minim counts like every other bar in this song. So if I look at this bar here, the total of these notes adds up to 2 minims. So that's a dotted crotchet plus a quaver, that's 1 minim's worth, and then I got 2 crotchets, which is 1 minim's worth. So that's a normal bar. This one's different, it's only half as long. So it's called a pickup bar. A pickup bar can be any length. Well, it has to be shorter than the normal bar length. In this case, it's usually half or a third or a quarter of what the normal bar is. So in this case, we start with an incomplete bar, or a pickup, or an anacrusis. Quite a bit. Okay, moving on. So strong beat. In cut common time, 2/2, notes that fall on beat 1 or 2 are strong, i.e. they are louder. The word down falls on beat 1 and thus should be a strong beat. So when I'm singing, when work has got you down, don't sit around and frown. So when we sing it, certain words or certain rhythms that we sing fall a bit stronger than others. So we could say that when is on a strong beat, work, got, down, not that one, sit, round, frown, those are all on strong beats. We've got a question.
So Dan, is it possible if you can go back and look at the pickup bar and zoom into it?
Oh, it's not showing up properly. Yeah.
No, because your face is covering it.
My big ugly face is in the way. Here we go, guys. Yep. I should have remembered. Here's the pickup bar. Hopefully, let's make it a bit bigger. That's the pickup bar there. So it's an incomplete bar. Every bar should have 2 minims. This one's only got 1. So it's an incomplete bar called a pickup bar or an anacrusis. So that's meant, you've probably noticed when I count the song in, we go 1, 2, when, work. So it's 1, 2, and then a breath, and we're sort of coming in within half a bar. Oops, I've lost it. Oh, what did I do there? There we go. So yeah, that's what an incomplete bar or a pickup bar is. Here we go. Alright, so we were talking about strong beats. So notes that fall on beat 1 or 2 in 2/2 time are strong. So the word when is a strong, work, got, down, sit, round, frown. Those are all the strong beats. When work has got you down, don't sit around and frown. But if you've got strong beats, well, you've got to have weak beats as well. So in cut common time, notes that do not fall on beat 1 or 2 are weak. They are softer. So don't, in this instance here, don't is after beat 2 and thus should be a weak beat. So don't actually emphasize the word don't. When work has got you down, don't sit. It's kind of secondary, at least in maybe volume, to this one, which is on a strong beat. This last point here, so rest/breath. In vocal music, especially a cappella music like barbershop, rests indicate where there should be silence and potentially where there should be a breath too. So right here we have crotchet's worth of breathing time. In other kinds of music, a rest doesn't necessarily indicate a breath. So if you're playing the piano, a rest doesn't mean you breathe, because you can breathe freely when you play the piano. But when we're singing, it's important to know where the rests or the breath points are. Let's move on. Okay, moving on to another big section. This is pitch, or how high and low those sounds are. Okay, pitch basics. So when we say pitch, we're referring to the highness or lowness of notes. Notes of a higher pitch have a greater frequency. Notes of a lower pitch have a lesser frequency. In Western music, we organize notes into scales from low to high. On the stave, notes are written on the lines and spaces. The higher the note, the higher it will be notated on the stave. Here's a little example. So the lower you go, the lower the pitch is. The higher you go, the higher the pitch is. I think most of us know that intuitively. Note names on the stave. Okay, this is a sheet that I made for my piano and guitar students. It just has several very common mnemonics that people use to remember the pitch, the notes, how to read the notes on the treble clef and the bass clef. But here's a couple of things you should know. So notes are placed on the stave on either the lines or in the spaces. There's a few common mnemonics below. So if you're looking at the treble clef, tenors and leads, then you might remember these couple of mnemonics. So the lines go E, G, B, D, F, or every good boy deserves fruit. The spaces spell out the word face from the bottom up, F-A-C-E. I'll zoom in for the basses and the baritones down here. So we've got... So in our bass clef, the lines go G, B, D, F, A, or good birds don't fly away. And then over here, the spaces spell, or A-C-E-G, and you can remember that by going all cows eat grass. That's one popular mnemonic you can use. Now this is important. I had a student once that was a bit confused about what part of the note you look at to find its pitch. And he was looking at the end of the stem, which I'd never encountered before, but that's a mistake that you can make, so I thought I'd better clarify. We always read the pitch based on where the note head rests, not the note stem. So these red ones, semi-breves, they don't have stems, so it's a little bit more obvious with those, but these guys, crotchets, you look at where the head is, so the round black part of the note, not where the stem is pointing to. If notes get too high or low for the stave, we use ledger lines, which are little extra lines, to show how far off the stave we've gone. So if you're a tenor, you might sometimes have to sing this very high C. So they use two ledger lines to show you exactly how high you've gone. If you're a baritone and you're singing Throw Your Arms Around Me, then you'll probably be pretty familiar with this note here, this E, which is kind of high for a baritone. I better zoom in down here and show you some of the extra low bass notes. So, if you're Dave Harcourt, you could probably sing this note. In fact, it's probably your most comfortable note. I've lost my spot. There we go. So yeah, there's some very low bass notes down here, so that's about as low as normal bass voices could get to. I just have daydreams about this note down here. Alright, so just a note here. The mnemonics for the sub-octave treble clef, which we use in barbershop music, are the same as the treble clef. So this treble clef doesn't have a little 8, so it's not a sub-octave treble clef, which we'd use in barbershop, but it's still the same. Everything's been displaced by an octave, but that's still an F, that's still a D, and so on. Okay, sharps, flats, and naturals. So sharps, flats, and naturals are sometimes referred to collectively as accidentals. They alter the pitch by one semitone. A semitone is the smallest interval that we use in Western music. So da 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 da. A semitone is like what you'd hear in Jaws, or from one note on the piano to the very next one. The effect of an accidental lasts only until the end of the bar. For example, if the first F in a bar is marked with a sharp, all Fs that follow in that bar will also be sharp. At the start of the next bar, the F resets. I'll show an example of that down here. So let's look at, this is an excerpt from Zippity Doodah. Let's go in here and have a little look at what we're pointing at here. So, sharps. A sharp raises a note by a semitone, i.e. from one piano key to the one immediately to the right. This note would normally be a C, but now it is C sharp. That's the sharp symbol. It looks like a little hashtag. My students all refer to it as hashtag instead of sharp, much to my chagrin. But, nevertheless, it is a sharp. Let's have a look at some flats down here. So, a flat lowers a note by a semitone, i.e. from one piano key to the one immediately to the left. Da da. This note would normally be an A, but now it is A flat. So in this bar, that's an A, I would just call it an A or an A natural, a white key on the piano. This one is an A flat. That's little B symbol here. Let's get a closer look at this little boy. So it's kind of like a B, a lowercase b. That's a flat. Okay, and there's one other important one which we need to look at, which is up here a bit. There we go. Okay, naturals. A natural cancels out the effect of a flat or a sharp. A natural in front of a note will always... that should have it's a typo. A natural in front of a note will always mean... A natural in front of a note always means it will be a white key on the piano. So this here is an F natural. In this instance, the natural is a courtesy natural, reminding you that the F is no longer F sharp, So if we zoom over a little bit, in bar 6, we see that the F was an F sharp, and in bar 7, it's just gone back to being a normal F, but the natural there is to remind you. A question.
Yeah, so someone did actually ask whether that F natural in bar 7 needs to be annotated with the symbol. Is that always the case?
That's a good question. So do we always need to use a courtesy natural to remind us that it's gone from an F sharp back to an F natural? I made this in Sibelius, and Sibelius, that program sort of does it automatically. I didn't put that natural there, it just sort of popped up when I wrote an F in this bar after that one had been an F sharp. I think it's nice. I mean, it is called a courtesy accidental. I think it's nice when they do that because you're like, oh yeah, this note's going from F sharp back down to F natural. That kind of helps. Some people say, no, you should just know that after the bar ends, it goes back to being normal. So I don't know if either way is agreed upon universally. I don't think it is, but I like it this way. I like the courtesy accidental. I think it helps a little bit. Okay. I think that's everything we covered on that page. There's another courtesy accidental there. So I'll zoom in on that one. So this C, it has a natural sign next to it. I think, and that's because there was a C sharp in the bar that happened before, even though it was in a different voice part. So the tenors were singing a C sharp. The leads had nothing to do with that C sharp. But then in this bar, the lead's singing C, and this little accidental is reminding you that it's no longer sharp. It's just a normal C. Some of you know Alex Morris. Some of you know he's got a tattoo of a natural sign somewhere on his body. So you can ask him about that next time you see him. Moving on. Alright, here's an example from a song. So this is from Throw Your Arms Around Me. So here we see the sub-octave treble clef in action. So here's our treble clef with a little 8. So in barbershop music, the tenor and lead parts are written on a treble clef with a little 8 underneath. This is a treble clef transposed 1 octave lower. Over here we see some ledger lines in action. The baritone part is getting pretty high here, and so ledger lines are used to show the pitch above the bass stave. So that's a high E for the baritones. I know Troy doesn't like that note very much, so take it up with Troy. Okay, let's have a look at something else. Yes. Keys and key signatures. The key of a piece of music is the group of pitches or scale that forms the basis of that piece of music. For example, a song in the key of C will use mostly notes from the C major scale, which are all the white keys on the piano. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. It's usually the first scale you learn if you learn the piano because it's the easiest one to play. There's no black notes to worry about. So you can use notes from outside the key. We call those non-diatonic notes to add tension and harmonic color to your music. Typically, these non-diatonic notes are notated with accidentals, sharps, flats, and naturals. If I go back to our example from Zippity Doodah, Zippity Doodah is in the key of C, so whenever you see a sharp or a flat, that means those notes are from outside the key. Those are non-diatonic notes. But without those, the music wouldn't be nearly as interesting. Those are the colourful notes that we like to hear so much of in barbershop. Okay, key signatures. A key signature appears at the start of each piece of music. Broadly, it tells you what notes you can expect to see in the music that follows. A key signature is written on the stave after the clef and typically has a number of sharps, has a number of flats or sharps. It never has both, it's one or the other. So this is the key signature. You can see it's in the sub-octave treble clef, and also down here in the bass clef as well. It has to be in both clefs. Okay, there are some tricks for identifying key signatures. So sure, you could memorize them all. In fact, if you had my piano teacher, yes, you would have memorized them all because it's important to know them. But here's a couple of quick and easy ways to figure out what key your song is in. Note, this assumes that you are in a major key, which most barbershop songs are. Minor keys is probably a discussion for another day. I'm not going to cover it in this PowerPoint. But major keys are more common than minor keys in the music that we sing. So I figure it's more useful for us to know how to identify major keys. Okay, so flat keys. For key signatures with flats, like this one over here, the second last flat, as you're reading from left to right, will be the key signature. So in Coney Island Baby, B flat is the second last flat. If I zoom in, there's two flats. The second last one is B flat. Every good boy, B flat. Question there?
Yeah, just going back to something you mentioned earlier, why is it called a diatonic scale? Is that something to do with a number or something else?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. I'll have to look that up. Diatonic. Maybe someone can do a quick Google and find out for us right now. I never questioned it, so I know there's a pentatonic scale has 5 notes, which is kind of logical. I've heard of hexatonic scales, so it may well have something to do with it. So maybe someone can look that up for us. Okay, so yeah, when you're identifying a flat key, look at the key signature and identify what the second last flat is. So in this case, it's a B flat, and that's your key. That's a pretty easy way to do it. Now, I didn't write this in, I should have. If there's only one flat, that means you're in the key of F. There's only one thing it could be, and that's the key of F. So if there's one flat, that's the key of F. This rule doesn't work for that one. Sharp keys. So in a key with sharps, the last sharp will be the leading note, or the 7th note of the scale. Or if you know your solfa, that would be T, the 7th note. So if you go up one semitone from there, you will have the key. For example, if you see one F sharp in the key signature, go up one semitone to G. The key is G major. Let's have a look at some examples. Okay, here we've got 4 excerpts from songs that we know. Songs that most of us will know, I should say. So let's have a look at this one first. So this one is from Ring of Fire. The key signature is here. So there's one sharp, and if we use our mnemonic to figure it out, it's every good boy deserves fruit. That's an F sharp. And how do we figure out what the sharp was? If we go back one. Sharp keys. The last sharp will be the leading note or 7th note of the scale. So if you go up one semitone, you'll have the key. So F sharp, up one more note from F sharp is G. So this is in G major. Let's do a flat key. So this is from Spoonful of Sugar. So my goodness, look at that key signature. It's got 4 flats. Now, to figure out the key signature for flat keys, you look at the second last flat. That'll be this one right here. It looks like it's in a space. So we go, the spaces on the treble clef spell the word face. So F-A-C-E. That's in the second space, which is A. So this is an A flat. So this song is in A flat. Let's look at another one. Alright, I chose this one because it looks so crazy. This is from Still Call Australia Home. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sharps. 6 sharps, oh my god. That's pretty much everything is sharp. So the last sharp is E sharp, which is a bit of an odd note because E sharp on the piano is the same as F, it's the F key. So if you go up one note from E sharp, you have F sharp. So the key of this is F sharp. Okay, one more. This is from Baby on Board. We've got 3 flats here. So what's the second last flat? I'll give you 5 seconds to work it out at home. The second last flat is yeah, bing bing bing.
We're a bit more than 5 seconds.
The second last flat is E flat. So that's this Baby on Board is in E flat. Okay, I've reached the end of my PowerPoint. So please guys have a think about, do you have any more questions for me to answer here? Because I've really only scratched the surface and there's tons more we could talk about. So please have a quick think about what you'd like to know more about, and then write those comments in and Geordie will tell me. While he's doing that, I'll bring up a couple of useful documents that you can have a look at. So I can send these out to you guys later on. I made these up for my students. Oops. So this has just got the scale, the major scales written out in order of, so these are all the sharp keys. So for example, C major has no sharps, and then G major has 1 sharp, and then D major has 2 sharps, and then A major has 3 sharps, and so it just keeps adding sharps. And the sharpiest key is C sharp major, which has 7 sharps. Everything is sharp. All the notes are sharp. Let's have a look at the flat keys. So in your flat keys, we got C, F major has 1 flat, then we start adding more flats. And then when you get to the bottom of that, the flattest key is C flat major, 7 flats. Everything is flat. Crazy. All right, we've got a question.
Yeah, why are there only 7 notes in an octave?
Why are there only 7 notes in an octave? Are you asking? I think what you're asking is about, like, why is it called an octave? Like, it sounds like it's going to have 8 in it. Well, it does really, because you double up on the first note. So you go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's only 7 notes in 7 unique notes in a scale, but an octave is the distance from, say, C to C. And if you count both the starting note and the end note, then that's 8. Music's a little bit weird like that. You count the starting note and the end note. Another question.
Yeah, so in your third example, which was I Still Call Australia Home, there was a strange thing in front of it. Can we have a look at that?
A strange thing. That's so... Okay.
The word all.
Where where was that? Back here again?
In your third example.
Third example. Okay.
The word all.
Wait. Oh, is this... I think this is further towards the end. Oh. Ah! Yes, okay. Excellent question. Here we go. So, who's asking this question?
Pete.
Ah, good question, Pete. So, wait, hang on. Baritone Pete or tenor Pete?
Baritone Pete.
Okay. Hi, Baritone Pete. So you're probably referring to this symbol here, which is called a double sharp. So it means where a sharp, which looks like a hashtag, raises a note by one semitone. A double sharp raises a note by two semitones, or a tone. So a tone is another name for two semitones. So this is a C double sharp, which means it's really a D. Why is it called a C double sharp instead of a D, I hear you ask? It's really to do with, it's kind of like how we spell the chord correctly. Because if I wrote it as a D, it would be as though I'd spelled a word incorrectly. Like I'd spelled the word some, P-S-A-L-M, which is not how the word is spelled. You kind of, if I spoke it out loud, you'd know what I was saying. But if you saw it written down, you'd be confused. So it's really about how this chord is spelled, because I believe this is, looks like an A sharp 7 chord, which needs a major third, and if you go A sharp, upper major third from that, you need a C double sharp. So that's the root note of the chord. The baritone has the root note. The third is in the tenors. So in order to spell that third correctly, I've got to call it a C double sharp, even though it's a little bit more confusing possibly to read, because it's not obvious that that note is higher than that note. That's the answer. I hope that is a satisfactory answer for you. Have you got any more questions coming through?
Not just yet.
Not just yet. All right, hurry up, guys.
We're a little bit behind.
They're a little bit behind, yeah, okay, yeah. There is a bit of a delay. There are also double flats. I think there was an example of a double flat near the beginning in Spoonful of Sugar. Let's find that. Oh no, here we go. So we're on the subject of double sharps. That's what a double flat looks like. It's just two flats side by side. And so, whereas a double sharp would raise a note by a full tone, a double flat lowers a note by a full tone. So tenors, we're singing an E double flat, which is really a D. Are there any more interesting questions coming through?
Well, Rog makes a comment here. He says, in swing down, there's a run of chromatic notes, which, looking at that, you kind of can't really be sure about the key. Can you tell us what the key of Swing Down Chariot is?
Okay, yeah. So Swing Down Chariot it's in the key of F, if I remember correctly. I think it stays in F to the end as well. There's no key changes. So in that instance, in Swing Down Chariot, yeah, it plays every note in the chromatic scale. So the chromatic scale is like, if you hop on a piano and you play every note, including all the black notes and all the white notes, that's a chromatic scale. So what it's doing there is going da 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 da. So it's a full octave, but it's hitting every note, including all the non-diatonic notes on the way. The key of the music doesn't change just because you've hit all the non-diatonic notes, because you can still do that. But if we sing it in tune, then we should stay in the same key. It doesn't change the key, and it doesn't even really mean that we're in a different key even for that short amount of time. Because you can borrow notes from other keys, and it doesn't mean you've changed key. But if you spend ages and ages borrowing all the notes from G major when you started in, let's say, E flat major, then yeah, it would start to sound to the listener as though you had changed key, actually. So in a sense, it's also a bit about like what the ear, how the ear feels. Does it feel settled into a new key? I might have to find some examples of music that changes key. A lot of pop songs do it when you get to the final chorus. They'll just do a key change and everything goes up. Those are fairly obvious ones. There are more subtle ones out there as well. Cool, that's a really good question, Raj. Thank you, Raj.
I personally have heard the analogy of a key being the concept of home. So all the notes that are within the key make sense and sound right, whereas ones that aren't in a key, they don't sound right, and it's that balance between those that creates the colour.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear Geordie coming through on the microphone there, but he was talking about how if you use the notes that are in the key, it feels like home. It feels stable and solid and familiar. And if you start using notes outside the key, it sounds spicier or it adds tension. If you use too many notes outside the key, then you lose all sense of home, and it can feel disorienting. It just feels a little bit odd. But you use just the right amount, and they're always part of chords as well. They're always part of a harmonic context, but you use notes from outside the key, it really spices up the music. In fact, we don't sing a single song that stays all in the same key. Not off the top of my head. Every song we sing has non-diatonic notes. That's just kind of in the nature of the music that we sing. But certain maybe church music, hymns and things like that would be pretty vanilla, if I can use that term, as in that they stay in the same key and don't deviate from it much at all. And you can still have incredibly beautiful music in that way as well. But you do really notice when they start throwing in notes from outside the key. It's a good question. All right, any more questions coming through?
Boyd just wants to thank you for the new Happy Birthday learning tracks. They're much better than the previous ones.
You're welcome. Thank you, Boyd. It was fun to do those tracks, actually. It was actually amazing that the lead part, the melody, was the hardest one to sing correctly. It's actually not that easy of a melody. So, yeah. That's got some interesting chords in it. We should do an analysis of Happy Birthday sometime.
Peter Brown asks, is that a slur over those notes in bar 72? I'm assuming he's talking about Swing Down Chariot. I don't think any of your examples that you've got there have gone to bar 72.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, it would be a slur in Swing Down Chariot over those bars with the big slide. What's the word at that time? Ride? Let me ride or something?
Side.
On the other side. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the slur, in that instance, the slur is telling you that you're singing the same word sound over all of those notes. So side, as opposed to an individual word like side, the other side, the other side, the other side, instead of changing words the whole way down. So that's what the slur would mean in that instance. There's probably some examples of that in here. If I find one again. Here's an example. So on the word O, the bass slides up from an F to a B flat. He doesn't change word. He it keeps on the word O but changes the pitch by sliding up. Cool. Any other questions? Alright, I think we're running out, and that's about an hour. That's the same as our first lesson, so that's pretty good timing, I reckon. I hope this was useful to you. I can make this PowerPoint available to you. In fact, we could probably do that, upload that tonight to the website. I'll also send out these couple of documents as well, which have got the major scales in the flat keys and the major scales in the sharp keys. Might be a good reference for some of us. And it's got numbers on it too, so you know that C is scale degree 1, D is scale degree 2, and so on. One more question. Cool.
Yeah, so we've got a question from Peter Thomas, and he's wondering if you can describe the pattern of a major key. It's something that he did know when he was younger, but it's kind of forgotten over time.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you, Pete. I was going to put that in and then I forgot. So, let's use C major here as an example. So if I understand you correctly, Pete. So the pattern being the distance from one note to the next in a major scale. So I don't think I can write on this PDF to show you. Can I, Geordie? That would be handy if I could. Maybe. Here we go. No, no. Okay, never mind. All right. Maybe this one. All right. I'm not going to try and write on it, but so in a major scale, there's a pattern that goes like this: tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So that's the distance between each note. So from C to D is a tone, or a full step, sometimes called, or a whole step. The distance from E to F is a semitone, or a half step. So that pattern again is tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So 2 tones, then a semitone, 3 tones, then a semitone. So that means the distance from 3 to 4, or from E to F, is the same distance as from B to C. That's a semitone in both instances. And the distance from C to D and from D to E is a full tone, or a whole step. So that pattern is the same in every major scale, not just in C, but every major scale. That's why all major scales kind of sound the same, is that they have the same pattern of tones and semitones. That's a great question, Pete. I should have put that in my slideshow. It makes sense when you can see it on the piano as well. If you know the pattern, then really you can play a major scale starting on any note, as long as you figure out which ones are going to be tones and which ones are going to be semitones. So one more time: tone, 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 semitone, tone, 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 semitone. That's the distance between each 2 notes in the scale. Cool, hope that's clear. There's some more funny comments coming through, I think.
Oh, I've got plenty.
Plenty of funny
Rog
comments.
has asked, what about minor keys?
Oh, Rog, why did you have to go and ask that? Alright, minor keys. I'm not going to get into them too much now, but super quick. So every major scale has a related minor scale. So if you start the scale on a different note, so if we start C major on scale degree 6, which is an A, then we get an A natural minor scale, which is the relative minor of C major. The same is true as if we go to G major. If you start on scale degree 6, that's an E, then you'll have an E natural minor scale, And you can do it in the flat keys as well. So if I go to F major scale, if I start my F major scale on D, then I've got a D natural minor scale. So the majors and the minors are closely related. The pattern that Peter Thomas asked about is not the same, because it would go, what would it go? Tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. And then, I'm not going to get into this, but you can look up, there's different kinds of minor scales. There's natural minor scales, harmonic minor scales, melodic minor scales, and they're all, we don't use them all that much in barbershop music. One piece that we do that's in minor scale is God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, and I think that one, I think that's, I think it's F natural minor. I'm just trying to remember whether it's a natural minor or harmonic minor, or it might use elements of both. But yeah, it's in F minor. Gosh darn it, Raj, why'd you have to go and ask that question? Yeah, don't worry about it, mate. Any more questions coming through? Alright, hopefully we answered everything that you wanted answered today. But if there's holes in your knowledge that you would like to have filled, then you can write me and let me know more questions that you'd like to know the answers to, and we could possibly do a music theory version 2, music theory episode 2, and we can cover some of the more advanced stuff. What I wanted to do here was cover a bunch of the basics about our pitch and our rhythm that I think will serve the majority of the members well. But if you're really interested in chord theory and other juicy stuff like that, then I'd be happy to talk about that later on as well. Cool. I think I'm going to sign out now. Thanks for tuning in, guys.